Hello, this is going to be a video about how to use the weighted sum option in the search, item search on the official site or on poe.trade to find an item that's going to give you the most damage for the least cost. A lot of people will just figure, oh well, crit multi is my best damage stat, I'll search for a crit multi jewel or whatever. And you might miss out on some of the not quite as good damage stats, but maybe multiple of them for cheaper because everybody's looking for crit multi, that kind of thing. So we're going to build a set of weights in path of building that are going to let us pick a jewel or whatever item, any item, based on its total contribution to our damage, roughly. Okay, so this is, oops, that's the wrong thing. This is a double strike crit-based juggernaut with sort of mediocre gear, and we're going to pick an item, and I've decided on this jewel here, and we're going to upgrade it. So this jewel is kind of balls. We don't need the strength because we got tons of strength. We got a little bit of physical damage, which is not our best damage mod, and we got 6% life. Life is good, so we'll probably keep the life. So compared to nothing, that jewel is giving us 9k damage. Let's try to find something that gives us 15k damage instead. So I'm going to come down here to this sum, and I'm going to put in 15, 3 zeros. And because of an oddity that I have to deal with later, I'm going to put a 4th 0 on there. And then we're going to create a jewel to mess around with different stats on. No, not a scepter. We're going to create a jewel. It doesn't really matter what kind, but make it crimson. Okay. So what's good? Well, we know crit multi is good. Crit multi is good for everybody. Global critical strike multiplier. We don't want the pseudos. We want the explicit. Total global critical strike multiplier. The reason we don't want pseudos is we can end up double counting some stuff accidentally if we use pseudo mods. So we're dual wielding, and we've got a sword. So we're going to go global critical strike multiplier while dual wielding. Critical strike multiplier with there's no critical strike multiplier with swords. There's, with one-hand melee weapons. One-hand melee weapons, there we go. And melee critical strike multiplier. Melee critical strike multiplier. All of these are going to have the same weight, so I only need to calculate it once. I'm going to come up here, add modifier, and this is the reason I put the extra 0 down there. I'm putting 10%, it's actually plus 10%, to global critical strike multiplier. The reason I'm doing 10% instead of 1% and not fussing with that extra 0 is because path of building has a tendency to round stuff poorly when you use small numbers, so better to use the 10%. 6998.6. And it's going to be the same for all these others. Great. Critical strike multiplier is good. Attack speed is also very good for a double strike juggernaut. So attack speed, we want not the local one, that's for weapons, this one, the explicit. We also want attack speed with swords, attack speed with one-handed melee weapons, attack speed while dual wielding, attack and cast speed. That's about all the attack speed modifiers that apply to us. They're all going to be weighted the same. So we're going to remove this and add 10% increased attack speed. 15892.9. That's our weight for all of our attack speed modifiers. Great. What else is good? Crit chance is okay. It's not as good as crit multi, but it's not terrible. Like if we go up here, even with diamond flats, we're only at 61% crit, so it doesn't hurt to have a little more. Global crit, not the pseudo. Global critical strike chance. critical strike chance with one-handed melee weapons, critical strike chance while dual wielding, melee critical strike chance. Perfect. These are all going to be weighted the same also. So we're going to have 10% increased global critical strike chance. Our weight is 3193.7. 3193.7. Duplicate that down here. Okay, that's the big ones. We've also got our increased damage modifier. Increased damage. This one is slightly different from our actual weapon damage modifiers because it affects bleed and poison, but we don't have much of that, so we don't have to worry too much. 10% increased damage. 5987.5. 5987.5. And then we're going to have global physical damage, which is going to be slightly worse than damage. 10% increased global physical damage. 5771.4. And then we're going to have the weapon ones. We're going to have damage with swords. And we're going to have damage with one-handed melee weapons. 10% increased physical damage with swords, and this is going to be slightly worse even than physical damage because it doesn't apply to the bleed. 5674.6. And that's going to be the same. Oops, I just undid it. There we go. It's going to be the same as one-handed melee weapons. It's just a sword. Great. And since we're a juggernaut, we might as well put accuracy. Global accuracy rating. 10% increased global accuracy rating. 2167.2. Perfect. Alright, let's search for an item. So we said we wanted 15k damage from this, as opposed to the 9k we were getting from our current jewel. Let's make sure it's a jewel. And how much do we want to spend? This is kind of a budget guy, so we probably don't want to spend more than, say, 20 chaos. If it turns out that our damage weight is, or our damage total is too high for 20 chaos, we'll tweak it around a bit. There's a bunch of results. 9% physical damage with swords, attack speed. Hey, that's, oh shoot, I know what I forgot. That jewel we were replacing had life, right? We want some life. So I'm not putting this in the weights. I want guaranteed for sure increased maximum life. I was looking at that and I was like, that's a little too much damage for a little too little money. 5% increased maximum life. So in order to actually so let me show you something. If I hit search there, I don't see the weight listed. But if I come back here and I put my mouse in one of these boxes and hit enter, now I see the weights. So I want to see the weights. So here's a bunch of results that actually have life. This looks like it's about what we're looking for. These are the ones in our price range. There's 3 results. If I click on sum here, it'll sort by damage. So this cheaper one is actually more damage than the other two. And just to double check that it's actually the amount of damage that we think it is, we think it's 16.8k damage. We're going to hit copy item here. We can expect it to be maybe slightly different, but we're going to do create custom and paste it here, create, and scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Where is it? You have this in socket 1. Oh, 17k. Yeah, 17k versus 16.8k. So a little bit of a rounding error there, or possibly some synergy between these two mods. No, not really synergy, so just a rounding error. But it's essentially the same amount of damage. So there I go. I almost doubled my damage for 15 chaos. Great. A lot of people might not think to search for that attack and cast speed, although some people will use a pseudo mod to search for any kind of attack speed. So there's a cool jewel. You can use this same technique for a lot of different kinds of items. You could use it to search for a weapon, stat stick weapon. It's not so good for searching for a main hand or like a weapon that you actually hit people with, because the way that the physical mods are calculated doesn't really show up in these filters. You have to use these weapon damage filters over here, which don't have the weighted sum option available to them. So, but for a stat stick weapon, you can use this exact same approach. You can leave even all these same things and just start adding at the bottom your phys as extra fire or whatever. You can just any item slot. This works great. So hopefully you found that helpful. Don't use it for a weapon you're hitting somebody with. And if you do want to search for an offhand weapon, keep in mind that dual wielding has an inherent attack speed bonus. So instead of pulling out, so let's put this guy back, instead of pulling out my Nebulock, which is going to tank my damage, by the way, instead of pulling it out altogether, causing me to lose the attack speed bonus, I'm going to need to stick a useless item in the offhand slot. Whatever, scepter. Somber scepter, sure. So it's not quite useless, so to make it useless I'm going to get rid of that Ellie pen. So now it's completely useless. Add it to the build, and see it still affects my DPS because I'm dual wielding. So if I were to replace this item with Nebulock, it's getting clipped off the bottom. With Nebulock, I would gain 88,000 DPS. So if I wanted to get something that's better than Nebulock, maybe I'm searching for something with 100,000 DPS. So we can go back to our search here. Let's put in 100,000 and an extra 0 because I'm going to use 10% on everything. And let's put in some good stat stick modifiers. I'm going to leave all of these alone. Some of them are even going to apply to my stat stick, like global critical strike multiplier and, well, probably just that one actually. But there's no reason not to put them in. I can just choose what kind of item I want, and any of the damage mods that don't apply just won't show up in the search. So we've got as extra fire, as extra cold, as extra lightning, as extra damage of a random element, as extra chaos. Let's see, where is it? Elemental damage as extra chaos. There it is. Damage penetrates. So that's about what you get on a stat stick, that and the crit multi that we already got in there. So let's go ahead and calculate some weights for that stuff. Why not? Fortunately, my build doesn't have any preference for one element over the other, so I only have to worry about that once. So I am going to craft another scepter. I am going to kill the implicit so it doesn't mess with my stuff. And let's add in that phys as random element, or phys as fire, let's say. Gain 10% of physical damage as extra fire damage. There it is. Its damage contribution is down here, 12, 5, 8, 2.4. 12, 5, 8, 2.4. All of these are going to be the same. Don't do phys as a random element in path of building. It doesn't know how to calculate it, but its weight is the same as these since I don't have any bias for one element or the other. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Gain 10% of elemental damage as extra chaos damage. 5, 4, 4, 2.8. I don't have a lot of elemental damage to work with, really, at the moment. Oh, I can't see it here. Scroll down. Oh, you don't scroll down any further. Scroll up. No? Okay, whatever. It's easier with two monitors. 5442.8. And damage penetrates. Damage penetrates 10%. Elemental resistances. This would be in red if it wasn't working, by the way. If I spelled it wrong or whatever, like if I go in here and I forget the T, see it's in red and it doesn't do anything. Resistances. Okay, so 7030.2. Perfect. So now I've got a search that'll work for stat sticks. I have to change it from joules to melee, one-hand melee weapon. And we've got, oh, this is going to be more than 20 chaos, so I'm going to get rid of that. Beating a Nebulock is actually quite hard. Oh, you can't get max life on a weapon. Oh, don't be mean to me. One-hand melee weapon, weighted sum. How many zeros do I have on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Probably this. They're probably listed in exalts. There we are. So this guy looks pretty good. It's going to give us... Oh, it's not showing the weights. I have to click it there to get it to show the weights. There we go. So this is going to give me 100k DPS as opposed to 88k from Nebulock, roughly. This one, well, actually, let's just sort by the sum and see what the biggest, baddest offhand possible is. Well, that thing's ridiculous, obviously. It's sort of a spell offhand, but it's good for everybody, apparently. Well, that's all ridiculous, so let's sort by price again. Okay, so let's do this one. It's a claw, but it doesn't matter. Any offhand will work with double strike. For other builds like Blade Flurry, you have to actually make sure that your offhand is something that won't swing with that attack, but for double strike we don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to hit copy here, and the damage is not going to match this exactly because like these modifiers are going to change a little bit of how everything's going on in my build. But it's going to be pretty close. What does this say? 105k damage. So if I cancel this and create a custom item and paste this guy and look at what it's going to be if it replaces my dummy scepter there, 105k. Well, perfect. 105, 103, 105, 16. So pretty much same thing. So add to build, glyph fang. Cool. 311k. Oops, not glyph fang. Glyph something else. What was it named? Shoot. Corpse skewer. There it is. 387k damage versus with Nebulock 370k. FYI, Nebulock is really good. So that's how you do a weighted sum search. You can work with that on an offhand, on a jewel, on a ring, amulet, whatever. It doesn't work so well for a weapon that you're going to actually swing and hit stuff with, mainly physical ones, but really any, because you're looking at attacks per second, not the increased attack speed, and you're looking at, you know, physical DPS, not your plus physical mod, as being the relevant numbers. And unfortunately, these things can't be put into a weighted sum, so you're not going to be able to use this approach to search for an actual weapon that you swing at enemies with. But other than that, that's about all there is to say about that. So hopefully you found this useful, and if you have questions, you can post them in the comments or whatnot. Thanks for watching.